everyone, welcome to Keeping It Real. This is Nikki and I'm with Carrie. How are you doing?
Doing really good. How are you?
Good. I like seeing the sun outside today. It was supposed to be all gray and kind of yucky. I mean, it's not hot like it was a couple days ago, but it's a little bit cooler, like in the high 60s, low 70s maybe, but it said gray all day and it started off with a ton of cloud cover, but it's getting blue out there. I'm liking that.
Sunshine is out.
Yeah. So you guys, there has been some talk across the nation about what kind, like things changing into a buyer's market. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about, is it a buyer's market, a seller's market? What are they? What's happening nationally? What's happening locally? And what does that mean if you are a buyer or seller? So let's get ready. You ready, Carrie?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to talk again about understanding a buyer's market versus a seller's market. So, whoops, and I just totally took that off. Didn't mean to do that. Let's go. There we go. Okay. So what is a buyer's market? So a buyer's market is when there are more homes than buyers. So there's a lot more homes for sales. Buyers, when they go out there, they have choices. It's not usually as rushed. It's kind of a more quieter, like you can kind of take your time and look a little bit longer kind of things as a buyer's market. And homes usually are on the market a lot longer. So it's not like a 2 or 3 day turnaround like we saw in the past. It's not even maybe a 30 day. It might be 45 to 60 days. Okay. So that's what a buyer's market is. Carol, I'll let you do the next one, which is going to be, guess what?
Seller's market.
Okay. Go ahead, Carrie, take it away.
Yeah. Seller's market is basically when there are more buyers than homes available on the market. So it makes for a much more competitive market because there's less out there. There's less people snatch them up very quickly, especially if you're in certain price points. Like between $400,000 and $500,000 right now is the sweet spot, and everybody's going after those.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, it's like, where do we think we fall? I mean, we kind of both talked about it before, so.
Well, I just kind of hinted to it a little bit.
Exactly true.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go on. Okay. So these are some of the things that can affect if it's a buyer's market or a seller's market. And obviously the first one's going to be the supply. And I know here, in the past and stuff like that, with our interest rates and stuff like that, if you were going to go, we talked about this in the past, if you're going to sell your home, you'd be going to a higher interest rate. So a lot of people that normally would sell their houses were hanging on to them. So there was a lot less supply. A couple months ago, it seemed like everybody was, or a year ago or 2 years ago, whatever that was. I'm doing graduation, so days are mixing into minutes almost here. But there was such a high demand for houses, and that was a huge thing. If there was a really high demand versus a low demand. If there's a lot of homes, then, there's not as much of a demand for it. We'll talk about market trends here. We're going to look at some of that, but understanding that and looking at those is crucial. I mean, you really have to know what's happening in your market so you know how to respond to it. And then interest rates. You want to add anything to interest rates since you're my lender and you know all the answers to that? Anything else?
I wouldn't know all the answers, but we all know that it's been a very high interest rate market right now. And so less people have been out there to buy. But with the lack of inventory, there are still people that need to move into homes. And so it's still happening, but It's just more scary for people to get into a loan that's at a higher interest rate. And they qualify for a little bit less too.
Right. You do. So usually what you'd see if, the rates are high, there's less buyers, there's more supply, less demand because people aren't looking for it. Usually you'd see prices kind of going down, wouldn't you?
Yes.
You would. Okay. Let's find out what's happening here. Let's talk about what's happening across the nation. So I just got back from the Midwest and, people are shopping. I mean, it's in a way, it's kind of like here, but there's parts of the Midwest, there's parts of the South that I've been reading about that are going into a buyer's market. There's, a lot more buyers, or a lot less, I want to try to say here, a lot more homes available, a lot less buyers. And so buyers are having a choice. They can go in and take time. They don't have much trying to into a house because there's another house on the road. I'll get that one tomorrow. No big deal. That kind of stuff, right?
Yes.
So there's more sellers than buyers. So, and that's kind of changing a little bit. And that's like the first time that's happened. Some places, not here necessarily, but some places across the regions in the United States, that is changing, and they are seeing that trend. And that's like the first time we've seen that probably since like around COVID or before, right? I mean, because like everybody seemed like everybody went after COVID, everybody moved and was doing stuff and downsizing or upgrading or whatever because they wanted outdoors. Yeah. There's just this huge movement, and I think that's changing in some areas.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I know I have this weird video today, and it just like it's a little slow sometimes, it's a little fast. All right, but let's talk about Kitsap because that's what we're talking about. Okay, so what kind of market are we in? It's interesting. I'm going to put up some stats here in just a minute, but these are kind of the points with it behind here. So one of the things I hinted at a frame or two ago was that our home prices have actually increased. They went from like, I don't remember the exact number, it's like $590 now. Is kind of went from like 570 something, 79 or something to 590 now. So there's been about a $10,000 or $11,000 increase in your median home price. So it's gone up. So again, you'd think it would go down if it was going to be a buyer's market, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So the sales prices are now kind of at the 590, like I just mentioned. Homes are taking a day longer to sell than last year at this time. So that's not too drastic either way. That's kind of okay. The inventory, though, has gone up by 3.6%. And the month's supply of inventory is down 4.5% from 2.2 months to 2.1 months. So again, that doesn't seem like a lot. But what I found interesting is I talk with ChatGPT all the time, so I just like to get verses and different takes and stuff like going on. But usually it's like the real estate world is about 3 months. You want a 3% month supply or more to be kind of in a neutral market. 6 months longer is more of a buyer's market. Less than that is a seller's market. So it looks like, from what my numbers and my understanding is, we are still in a seller's market. It's slowing down. It's not as crazy, but we are still in the seller's market. The prices are still going up. Those things are still happening. I do want to move forward though, because I wanted to share something about the condos though here, because I found this interesting because I was like, let's check this out. So these are kind of the numbers we just talked about here, kind of up here where it says the residential and the first thing, and this is kind of what you're talking about. But if you look at the condos and you look at the month supply down here, can you see my mouse when I'm doing this or not? I don't know.
I cannot, no.
Okay, didn't know if anyone could or not. I'm just curious. It's, what is that, a 3.9 or 3.65, whatever, something like that. So that's technically over that. So it's more in a neutral kind of, it's not necessarily in a seller's market. It's kind of in a neutral. So, if you're out there looking for condos right now, you might be able to take a little bit of a breather. You don't have to rush trying to get that condo before the next person gets it. It's sitting on the market a little bit longer. That was kind of interesting, huh?
It is. But I think the difference is some people are looking for a home where they can have pets. During COVID, a lot of people got pets because they were actually home and able to train them. So that would be my opinion, is that you can't really have a dog as well in a townhome or a condo as you can if you have a yard with a house. So
that could be. So, and it seems like it's a little bit more transient too, as far as the condos. People are commuting and changing jobs and a little bit younger. So it just could be that, I don't know, but interesting. I thought that was kind of cool. Okay. Thought I would share that. Give you something new to think about today. And so then finally, these are some strategies that you can use. So, we're kind of talking about it as we went along. So if it's a buyer's market, like I said, you're looking at condos, you might want to take some time and be a little bit more choosy. You can negotiate a little bit more, but you still need to be prepared for it. I mean, because it's still in here in Kitsap, it's still leaning more towards the seller's market. So make sure you have your pre-approval, like we talked about over and over and over again, right? Make sure you get that done. Talk to Kara, give her a call. Her number will be in the phone screen, so make sure you pause it and get that number. But give her a call because I'm sure she'd love to help you get pre-approved. You know, when you're out there, make sure you know what your wants and your needs are. You know, maybe consider properties that need some work too. I mean, you might get a better deal, especially with the prices going up a little bit higher. It might be worth it to take something that maybe you do a little bit of work on too. So it's kind of a good time to do some negotiation as well in a buyer's market. Sellers, you know, best thing you can do is make sure your house is priced right. Make sure it's curb appeals there. That's, you know, because people are pulling up and you want them to like, oh, I love his house. You don't want them to go down to the neighbor's house and look, you know, a couple doors down and look at that. So you really want to do that. And I was going to make this, the last little point on here, be flexible with showings. So I'm on a real estate group, obviously, and I'm not mentioning names, but one of the brokers, she said, you know, guys, when you have a seller, tell them to make sure that they can go show their house because no one's going to buy the house that they can't go look at it. And I guess sellers are kind of like, oh, it's a seller's market. You know, I'm just going to get an offer on the site and see. It doesn't work like that right now. You really need to, you know, be as open and flexible as you can to get the showings in to make sure you get people seeing your house. So that would be one of my things. But that's what they were talking about on my group. It's like, make sure they're allowing them to come and look.
And you know, on that note, I had an open house that I did this past weekend. And when the family walked in, they said, oh my goodness, the house looks way different than the pictures. So you just definitely cannot judge a space at all on the pictures alone. Rooms are bigger or smaller. It might be the angle of the camera. So you really do want to be able to see it in person.
Yep, absolutely. And then, you know, the main thing is just really communicate with your brokers, let them know what's going on, you know, keeping them in the loop. This is what your goals are. Be aware of what's happening in the market, know your interest rates, know, you know, what your price points are, that kind of things. Be ready to negotiate. I mean, especially if we're kind of slowing down to get in the buyer's market, buyers are going to have more chance. Sellers be ready to negotiate some, you know, of that as well. And then there's also kind of exploring different price. I mean, financing option. If you decide to go with a fixer, you might want to do a rehab loan or, you know, so there's different things that you can do. Anything to add to that? Any of this talk?
Well, you know, just touching on the rehab, definitely you can lower your price point and have a bigger budget for the actual rehab part of it. And if the kitchen and the bathrooms are functional, then you can move in while the construction's being done.
So definitely something to think about.
Yes.
All right, you guys. As I mentioned, next slide is going to be our contact information. If we can help, make sure you reach out to us at the numbers listed there. Shoot us a text, shoot us a call. We'll be happy to talk to you. All right, you guys, thanks so much. We'll see you next time, next week. Thanks for joining us.